I'm going to talk about actually one of my truly favorite topics, which is training your AI tools. There is a huge difference between a trained AI tool and using a generic, ChatGPT or MindPal or anything like that. There's just, when you train it, it truly does take away a lot of the need for really in-depth prompting. It also makes it easier to just get the output that you want the first time and a lot faster. And it also can kind of guide your brand as a whole. I like to use one of my favorite uses for trained AI or custom GPTs is to create essentially a brand manager. I do it for each of my clients, and essentially that becomes the central source of knowledge for their whole business. And what's great about that when you do it is if you need to delegate, say, to a VA or a new staff member, it's really easy to keep everything on brand that way. And also you don't have to retrain people or repeat yourself over and over. This becomes essentially like a, internal knowledge document. And it also, even as, founders or, the people at the top running our business, sometimes it's easy to get off brand, kind of go down a rabbit hole. Creating these custom GPTs can kind of help you stay on brand as well. Because sometimes we can just, kind of spiral and go off in a weird direction. And this kind of helps centralize everything. There are multiple tools out there, AI tools that you can do this on. Claude has projects. MindPal works really great, particularly if you need to build workflows. And then ChatGPT has custom GPTs. So I will go over some of the others in future segments, but I'm going to just talk about ChatGPT and custom GPTs today because I think they're probably the most widely used, and frankly, they're my personal favorite. I think best results, and also you get more bang for your buck because you're probably already using ChatGPT for other things too. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we'll start looking at where to find the custom GPTs, how to train them, all of that. So when you go to your obviously normal ChatGPT login, and I should preface this and say you do need one of the paid accounts to actually train your own. You can use a custom GPT with a free account, but for actually training your own, you do need it's $20 a month. Again, I get nothing from that, but truly that is probably some of the best $20 you can spend on your business per month, particularly if you want to train some AI tools. So absolutely worth it. I guarantee you're going to get your value out of it, but you do need that to train one. So when you're in ChatGPT, this is obviously, just kind of your lander here. If you go to GPTs and then create, that's how you will get to the creation screen. And I'll show you that in a minute. But first, I kind of want to show you what the back end of one that's already trained looks like, and also what it can do. So again, I do one of these for every one of my clients. We start with an AI brand manager, and then sometimes we filter down from there. We create, spin-off versions for really specific tasks, but every single one has a central AI brand manager. So I'm going to show you mine just so I don't give away anybody else's, back information. But this one is mine. And so if I were to go in here, and once you train it, you can always go back and tweak, you can retrain, you can update whatever you need to do. And to do that, so here's, again, my actual brand manager screen. And then I'd come in here to this drop down and go to edit. And so again, I'm going to show you how to actually train in a minute, but what we're looking at right now is what it looks like when it's been trained. So over here on this create screen, and sometimes it'll ask me like, is there anything I could be doing better? Is there anything you want to change? Today it's continue where we left off. You can absolutely just conversationally discuss that in here. But there's also this configure tab, which I honestly work in more often, but it's a matter of which you prefer. So in this configure screen, obviously name, description, these instructions, you've got tons of real estate here. So you can put a ton in here. And this is one of the things, I do too is, for each one that I train for my clients, I've got a really specific set of instructions we use about like how we do marketing or how we approach things that I put into those instructions. So not only does it have the business's information, but it's also pulling from my agency's expertise and the way we do things. So you can get really creative with those instructions and get really detailed. In the instructions is where you can tell it not to use emojis or what kind of tone of voice you want. But this is really where a lot of the power comes from, and this is your knowledge base. In here, you can upload anything, or if you've got a brand brief, if you've got blog articles you've written that give a lot of context about you or your business. I've got a bio in here of myself, some of my lead magnets, so it knows kind of what I talk about, my logo. You can put anything in here that you want. And if you're already using ChatGPT and you've got some memory built up, you can really go into one of those threads and say, hey, I'm going to train a custom GPT, list everything you know about my brand or about me or about my business, and create a document and then put it in here from that. Recommended model. This is new. Up until only about 2 months ago, you could only build on one specific model. Now you can either build it on any model, or you can leave the no recommended model, and then you can toggle between the two. I like to do it that way, but depending on what you're doing, like if you were building something to code, you might want to use 4.1 or something. And then capabilities. So you've got web search, you've got Canvas, you've got image generation. You can check or uncheck all of these. And I'll come back to web search because I want to talk about that one in a minute. But this is just to see what a configured backend looks like. And then what I want to show you is what happens. So I'm in this brand manager, and literally all I'm going to say is write a social post for me. That's it. That's all I'm going to say. No context, no explanation. And here's what I'm going to get. So here it's telling me it's going to align, with my mission. It's talking about at HerAIgency, we believe that AI isn't here to replace your magic, it's here to multiply it. It's going to put my website in here. It's going to put all the hashtags that I might typically use. It's talking about my AI brand manager program. So this literally came from the GPT knowing enough about my brand and my business and what I talk about that I didn't have to give it the context of like, today I want to post about this, or what should I post, or a content calendar. This is just something that it's pulled up for me based on what it knows. So same thing, I could ask it to write an email for my audience today or a reel. You don't have to get nearly as specific with your prompting when you've trained it properly. So that's what it looks like when it's done. And let's talk about kind of how to train one and then the best practices for this. And again, this is all just on a basic paid version of ChatGPT. If you are really into development, I also do fine tuning. So I will go in for my clients and really fine tune models, but that's way deeper down the rabbit hole. I will not bore you with that. But no, this is something that really anybody can do. It's not that hard, and it's pretty simple. You can do it in like 15 minutes. Again, to get to the training, we go to My GPTs, and then we go to Create. All right, so, and then it tells you, I'm here to help you build a new GPT. You could say something like, and it's giving you some ideas. So, and then it says, what would you like to make? So you can start here. You could come in here and say, I want to create a brand manager for whatever, or I want to create a social media assistant for my business. You could do anything like that in there that you want. And if you go about it this way, it's going to prompt you a couple of things. It's going to ask you, it'll ask you if you want to put an image in it. It will ask you questions. You can literally get it to just kind of interview you through these steps if you want to. That's one way to do it. You'll get to the same result. There are some things in configure you're going to want to change too, but I really prefer to kind of do most of my actual training and configuring in here. So instead of letting it ask me what I want to name it, I'm just going to go in and put my name in, my description, instructions. This is where you tell it everything about what you want it to do. This is not necessarily about your business or about maybe the task that you're asking it to do. This is about how it should do it. So we're going to give it things like, my tone of voice is this. I prefer to, let's say you're training a social media assistant. I prefer to post 3 times a week on Facebook and Instagram and twice a week on LinkedIn. I use WordPress for my website. Anything like that you can put in here so that it knows how to respond to you. You can also tell it things not to do. Negative prompting is completely within the realm of what it can do. So you can say, like a lot of people hate the M dashes in ChatGPT. You can say, don't use M dashes, don't use emojis, don't curse, whatever it is that you might want, you can put it in those instructions. When I train these for my clients or even for myself, again, I put in some really specific instructions about use best practices for a certain platform as of July 2025. I might say something like, keep email, no more than 2 paragraphs. There's lots of things that, are specific marketing instructions that I might put in here if I was doing this, but you may want to use it differently and you may have an entirely different process. So put in, whatever you want it to do and treat that just like you would explain it to a personal assistant or somebody, a VA, somebody that's going to work on something for you. Treat it just like that. These conversation starters, you can put these in here. I don't find them that useful, but that's like if you were maybe going to hand this off to a VA and you wanted to put in like, help me create a content calendar for 30 days, or what can we do to increase our brand recognition on LinkedIn? You could put stuff like that in there. I find these more helpful if you're like, a lot of people take these GPTs and use them as lead magnets or sell them, stuff like that. So I find them more helpful there as opposed to using internally. This knowledge base, this is the most important. So this is where I want you to upload everything you've got, like literally go into your drive and pull everything about your business that you've got: pricing, products, offers, any brand specifications, anything like that, throw it in here. If you've ever like put all your website copy, maybe when you had your website built, if you got your website copy somewhere, put it in there. And you can also in Create, you can say, scrape my website and give it the website and ask it to learn from that too. You can absolutely do that there. We already talked about the recommended model. You could set this if you wanted. I prefer to use it this way. And then you'll come over to capabilities and you'll turn on anything that you want. So let's talk, I said I was going to go back to web search, and let's talk about that a little bit. So web search is obviously really great if you're wanting, research, or you're wanting to pull from other sources. In the scenario like we're talking about, where we're training essentially a brand manager or something specific to our business, I often do turn this off when I build. And that's because I don't actually want it to go search my competitors' sites and see the way that they might do something. I don't want it to pull any information other than what I'm giving it. I can make a case for both. Obviously, if you don't have a really robust knowledge base up here and maybe you want some information, like let's say you are a tennis instructor and you want it to pull some new, practices, best practices in tennis instruction or new information on equipment, stuff like that, then absolutely leave it checked. But if you're really trying to make this an internal tool and something that keeps just your information, I typically turn it off. That being said, even though you uncheck it in web search here under capabilities, what that will do is that'll keep it from natively searching the web when you ask it something. But once you're in the GPT, in the same way that you can with any other thread or model that you're using, you can go in and enable web search on a specific query. So if there's something where it's like, I do want to, get the latest news on something, you can just turn it on for just that moment. Now, keep in mind, when you do that, it will record some of that into memory. You can always tell it not to after the fact, say, don't use that any further, remove that from memory. You can do all of that, but just know that if you use the web search, it is going to kind of add that to your training stack, so to speak. So I like to come back into my trained GPTs every so often. The instructions will update as you use it more. You've probably heard me talk before about reinforcement learning. The more you use an AI tool and the more you tell it, the better it gets. It truly is like training an employee and keeping them up to date. So if you give it feedback and say, that was off brand, that's the wrong product, that's not how I would say that, it's going to learn. You should see it like give its little updating memory kind of prompt there. So come back in every so often, look at your instructions. I do this on my clients' GPTs about once a month. or quarterly, depending on, how often I'm working with them. And just to make sure it's not kind of going off into, la la land or picking up some information that I don't want it to have. But the more you use it, the more information you give it, the better it's going to get over time, and the more it's going to learn about you. I come back into the knowledge base every so often, and if I've changed an offer, if I've changed a product, if I've written a new blog, and I'm like, this is a lot of what I'm talking about right now, I put it in there. So just keep it up to date. Again, treat it just like you would a human assistant or a staff member. And then again, this way, now you have this fully trained GPT that does, maybe it's managing your brand, maybe you've created it as a social media assistant, maybe it's a product. I have a couple e-com clients, and we use like product descriptions in here a lot. So I'll give it all of the products in the knowledge base, and then I'll put some best practices and instructions on like how to write for SEO for products, what we like to prioritize. And then I can just update those product descriptions. Updating those on the different places that they sell often is really important. Maybe it's for ad copy, maybe it's for the website. So there's lots of different ways you can use these custom GPTs. But my best recommendation is always like, start at the top with your business. Start with one centralized brand manager, or sometimes I call it like a chief marketing officer, depending on what I'm having it do specifically. But start with that one and really get a robust training on it, really get it to understand your business. This should essentially almost be like cloning your own brain here. And then after that, if you want to build from that, I would just go into my custom GPT and say, I'm going to create another custom GPT that only writes product descriptions for our e-com store. Share everything you know about our products, and help me write, sort of a knowledge base for the new GPT, and it'll do that. And then put it in a Google Doc, save it, come in here, start a new one, upload your file, create a new GPT. But these can be done, again, in as little as 10 to 15 minutes if you need it to be, pretty simple. Some of mine have hours and hours of training in them. I have client ones that we've spent, hundreds of hours on over, the course of the training and the reinforcement learning that are so good at this point that it truly could answer almost any question that someone would ask it and answer it right. And that's where you get, the ability to create this really on-brand content without losing what's authentic to your brand. This is the difference between just going to ChatGPT and saying, write some social content for my business, and you give it a little bit of information. Sometimes that can feel very generic. It can feel very, like AI content, essentially. But when you use these and you give it your tone and your information on your business and your best practices, you can really get content that feels entirely on brand and is on brand because you've trained it that way. So that's kind of my primer on how to do it. Again, there are a ton of ways to customize your instructions to get it to operate in certain ways. I won't go too far down that rabbit hole, but this is kind of the basics of where to find it, how to do it. And again, you can do this on a variety of platforms. If you're not into ChatGPT, Claude has it, MindPal. I don't know if Perplexity has something like this. They might not, but there's lots of options. So just find the ones that work best for you. And in my personal experience, I really like the custom GPTs, and I think the price point is great. You can create as many as you want on the $20 a month plan. So that's what I like to do. But that's kind of my spiel on it. So I will open it up if you have questions. If there's anything you want me to show you in particular, I'm happy to do that.
Jenna, this is so good.
I'm glad you like it. This is literally one of my favorite things to do is train these. So.
Awesome. No, I had no idea. I have the paid version and I had no idea. So I have like 4 questions.
Yeah, go for it.
First one, very quickly, you did already say that you can just update the instructions. So you don't have to like tell him that you're updating the instructions. You just go and change one word and then that's it.
Yep. And you could do that from here in this instructions, or like when you come in here again, this is a new one, but if I was on like one that I've already trained, a lot of times it'll say, what can I do better? What do you want to change? So you can go in here and be like, I no longer offer XYZ, remove that from your references, and it'll do it. Every once in a while, I find that even like in a thread, you have to remind it, but for the most part, it's pretty good about keeping up. And we are, I think at this point, within days of GPT-5 being released. I just keep looking for it. I think we got agents today across the Pro plan. So I think that we will have 5 within the next few days. And I'm hoping that with 5, we'll get some better memory and things like that. These custom ones don't hallucinate nearly as badly as regular ChatGPT does. It really, especially if you turn web search off, it's very good about sticking to what it's been trained on and what you've told it.
My understanding was that the ChatGPT 3, because it's like a 3 mini, I think. So it takes longer to process. So I thought that was better because it thinks more.
Yeah, so let me go back and I'll show you kind of the models, and I'll talk you through my kind of methodology on those. There we go. Okay, so this is again where we're at today. I do think that we will have 5 here within days. So 4.0 is your best model right now for everything, right? Like if you're not trying to get really into coding or anything like that, 4.0 is truly your best. 03 and there's an 03 mini too. They get a little more technical, and yes, they're a little bit slower, but you get a little bit more like data and in depth. And then 4.1 is really great for like coding, or let's say you're like struggling with setting up your Facebook pixel on your ads. It's really great at walking you through step-by-step technical stuff. And then this 4.1 mini, that's going to be your fastest. Like if you just need something really simple, 4.1 mini is going to be your fastest and your easiest way to get to that answer. 4.5 is like deep research. If you're writing papers, white papers, you really need something super technical, you can get to 4.5. But right now, 4.5 is still in preview, and I think you're limited to 6 runs a month right now. So I'm pretty team 4.0 in general. I use that most of the time, and I use 4.1 if I'm going to do, something highly technical. But otherwise, I particularly like 4.0 for just general use, and for like what we're talking about for marketing content, I would go 4.0.
Next question. So right now, I'm creating my website. And since you mentioned it can help you with that, what I'm struggling with is that I already have some stuff written. So once I tell him like, okay, give me my website copy, whatever, it's just like giving me so much. And then it's not aligned with what I already have. So I'm like back and forth, and then I don't make progress. Do you have any?
Yeah. So I think this is where like using a custom GPT is really going to help. Training it on exactly what you're going for. Also, like when you're doing that, are you using one singular thread when you're asking, or okay. So yeah, this is where I think a custom GPT is really going to shine. It can kind of go off base when it's not specifically trained to what you're trying to get to. So I would try this. I would try it as a custom GPT, and you could even take like the thread that you're already using. You could go into that and say, I'm going to train a custom GPT for this project. Give me, a summary of everything we've already talked about. You could absolutely do that, and then put it into the knowledge base and edit anything that you need to edit out if it has gone a little wonky. But that does happen, and unfortunately, it's just an AI quirk. But they're getting better. I think when 5 comes out, we'll see a lot of development in that area. But a trained thread, a really well trained either thread or a custom GPT is extremely beneficial to kind of keeping you on track a little better.
Yeah.
There's also, have you ever looked, or do you know how to look at your memory? No? Okay. So if you go into down here where it says personal account, so if you go, there's actually 2 places. So if you go to customize ChatGPT, and you may or may not have been in here, so like I never want it to use emojis. I hate emojis. So I ask it to use minimum emojis, ask it to humanize content. There's a bunch of stuff in here that it knows about me. So this is one way you can customize kind of the whole, your entire ChatGPT ecosystem. But more specifically, if you go to settings, and where is memory? Yep, okay, so it's under personalization. Go to manage memories, right? And so here, it's gonna tell me everything it knows about me or thinks it knows about me. And like, I bet if we scroll down through here, it probably knows my kids' names and all kinds of stuff. So this is everything it thinks it knows about me. And so you can go in here, and if there are things that are wrong or aren't what you want them to be, delete. So that's a good way to keep, it knows that my daughter likes chicken nuggets and not pizza. I didn't know it knows that, but it does. That's hilarious. So yeah, there's a lot of ways to kind of check through here, and there may be something in, like I've asked it to never use unlock because that sounds super ChatGPT and I don't like it. So check your memories too and see what's in there, because that could be a little bit of what's going on too. If you have to go back and forth, see what's in your memory and see if there's anything you need to take out or update in there.
Okay. What were you saying about how to train it to help you with the SEO?
Yeah. And there's multiple ways to go about that. So you could, for instance, put together like your best SEO practices. Like that's something I would do is like I've got, SOPs on SEO and stuff like that. So I would upload that into the custom instructions for like a client so that it knows to use that information when it's doing content. But you can also, once you've created, your business, model or whatever, you could absolutely go in here and say like, write an SEO optimized blog post for blank. So ask it for that. If you're familiar with prompting the act as an SEO expert, any kind of act as works really well in my opinion. I like that. And so you can do it like that. You could have it scan, if you've got web search turned on, you could have it scan your website and give you SEO recommendations. That usually works pretty well. But I would just say like anytime you're writing content from a trained one, just always say like keep best SEO practices in mind or optimize for SEO. If you're putting it on a specific platform, I usually tell it that. So like, for instance, YouTube SEO is a little different than say website SEO. So if I'm gonna, post something on YouTube, I say optimize for SEO for YouTube. Just give it that context. And if there's something in particular that you're trying to like rank for, or a specific, element that you're wanting, tell it that. I am trying to rank for blank in blank. Help me create content that will help me do that. So with SEO, I mean, you do need a good SEO tool or monitoring system to know where you're at, to know where your content gaps are. Unfortunately, like ChatGPT on its own isn't going to be able to identify that. But once you've identified like what you need, it's pretty easy to get it to optimize for it. And you can get it to like, I will ask it for, where was I doing it? Let's see if I can find it. It may be really slow. Yeah, okay, so on page SEO strategy. So yeah, I was writing something yesterday and I had it pull, some of this was code, which is a little more advanced than you probably want right now, but I had it pull this list of meta tags for me. I had it pull, social sharing, these AI and AEO tags. If you know how to put meta tags in, those are really powerful right now for ending up in like snippets or anything style answers. And then I asked it for keywords, internal linking strategy. So you can get a good bit of SEO expertise essentially in here just by asking it to do that for you. It's not going to naturally, like when you ask it to write content, it's not going to naturally optimize for SEO. So make sure you like give it that information unless you put that in your custom instructions. And I do, like for my client stuff, I always say like, here are best SEO practices. All content should be reflective of XYZ. So that's something you can do as well.
Okay. That's a lot.
I know it is a lot there. It's why I try to do really short little things at once, as opposed to like overwhelming you guys with, hours of content. But hopefully this is a good starting point to train it, and then you can dig in from there.
No, it is absolutely
Good.
It's great.
Good. These train tools I find are underutilized, and I think it's like one of the most powerful things you can have AI wise for your business right now, particularly if you're handing off to a VA or somebody else on your team. It can really help keep stuff on brand and not have to explain to them like what you want every time. Any other questions I can answer for you? Cool. All right. Well, if you have any questions, if you think of anything, you know where to find me. Feel free to reach out and give it a whirl. Like it really, if you've already got the paid version, it takes you 10 to 15 minutes to test it out and see. You can always go back and tweak and just see what you get. But it really will speed up your content creation process significantly.
I'll try for sure. Thank you so much, Jenna.
You're welcome. All right, everybody have a good day.
Thanks, you too.
You too.